Apple announced this week that it is going to stop selling the Apple Watch Series 9 and the Apple Watch Ultra 2 in the US because of a US government ruling related to Apple potentially using patents that it didn't have licenses for. What this effectively means is that Apple can't sell those products and can't import them into the US. And this has ultimately become a really big business for Apple, and it's one of the biggest growing segments for the company. So this is a pretty big deal. So I want to go through exactly what was announced and what we know, what the potential remedies are both this year and then looking into 2024. So it's possible that these devices get back on store shelves relatively quickly, but it may actually cost Apple to do that. So let's dig into it. My name is Travis Hoium. Thanks for watching Asymmetric Investing. Please subscribe here on YouTube for all my content. And thanks to this video sponsor, The Motley Fool. Check out fool.com/ASYM for their top 10 stocks to buy right now. And I'll start with a couple of news articles that explain exactly what happened here. This is from 9to5Mac announcing the halt of sales in the US. The first thing that's going to stop is online sales so that people can get those devices before Christmas. That would be Thursday, December 21st. And then Apple retail locations will not hold those devices by December 24th. What this is related to is the blood oxygen sensor that the Apple Watch has inside of it. That technology is patented by a company called Masimo. And there's a big backstory between Masimo and Apple. Apple hired a whole bunch of their product people and engineers, and it seems like they kind of reverse engineered some of their trade secrets. That piece of this dispute is actually still in court. So that is yet to be ruled on, and that could happen in the near future. But for now, there's going to be a halt to these devices in the US unless one of two things happens. One potential outcome is that the Biden administration could just veto these restrictions. This is something that has happened over again, particularly in the solar industry, is one of the areas where there's been a lot of announcements from the ITC. This is where a number of tariffs come from and other remedies from a trade perspective. So it's very possible that this restriction just is eliminated in just the next few days by Biden. But I don't think that's going to be the case, in part because the Apple Watch is not Apple's biggest product or its most important product. And there are easier ways around this. And one is just Apple making a deal with Masimo to be able to license their technology and actually include it in the Apple Watch. These companies have been at battle about their patents over the past few years, and both companies have kind of taken some wins there. But this is an indication that this could really start affecting Apple's business. And once you start doing that, then it might be worth just putting this whole thing behind the company, especially with a product as big as the Apple Watch. And that's what I want to highlight, because I think this is why this is ultimately really important. This chart is a chart of Apple's wearable, home, and accessories revenue. And you can see that since 2014, revenue was $8.4 billion that year. That is up to $39.8 billion. And there are two main products that really come from that. That is the Apple Watch and AirPods. According to Bernstein Research, the Apple Watch actually accounts for about half of this revenue. So $20 billion in revenue is what the Apple Watch could account for. So obviously the US is not going to be 100% of that revenue, but I think this is probably one of the company's biggest markets. Overall, the Americas are a little less than half of Apple's revenue. And I think it's pretty clear that it's a much more popular watch here than it is in most of the rest of the world. And this is really one of Apple's only growth segments. You can see since 2016, the compound annual growth rate of the wearables, home, and accessories segment is 19.9%. That is just an astounding level of growth. But compare that to some of the company's other segments. The iPhone, grown just 5.6% over that period of time. Mac, up 3.7%. iPad, up 4.6%. And services revenue is the only other major growth driver that is 19.5%. So when you look at Apple's business and a stock trading at over 30 times earnings, what you're looking for is, where's the company actually growing? And the answer today is that it's growing in wearables and accessories, and it's growing in services. It's not growing in iPhones, Macs, or iPads. It's growing in those first two areas. And the two critical products for wearables and accessories are going to be the Apple Watch and AirPods. This obviously affects one of those products, and this could be a significant hit to the company's revenue as soon as next week. So I think that's ultimately why this is really important to pay attention to. Thanks to our friends at The Motley Fool for sponsoring this video. Visit fool.com/ASYM for the top 10 stocks to buy right now. Now, if we look out a little bit further, there are ways for Apple to get around this. You could simply just take this sensor out and not include it in the product. So for the next generation of products, which may take 6 months or more to design and actually produce, that's something that Apple could definitely do. So they can definitely get around this, but that's going to be more of a long-term solution. And the short-term solution is just going to be finding an agreement between these two companies that's going to make sense for both of them. Massimo is a fairly sizable company, over $1 billion in revenue. So it's no slouch, and it's been fighting Apple for many years. So this is a really contentious relationship between the two. And like I said, there's a number of court battles that are still in courts today. Apple has won some, Massimo has won some, but this is the first time the products are being taken off the shelves and is really going to start to impact Apple's quarterly revenue. Like I said, $20 billion in revenue for the Apple Watch. And so this is going to impact sales in the US. Fortunately for Apple, this is happening after the critical holiday season. So it'll be the quarter after the holidays that are going to be more impacted. But I think this is really notable, especially when you look at where Apple's growth is coming from. The Apple Watch is a really important product. It's one of the few products that are still growing in revenue, where there's still significant improvements year after year. And one of the sales points is this sensor. This is something the company highlighted when it announced the product. It's one of the safety features that it's including. So if they need to take this sensor out, I think that's ultimately really bad news for the Apple Watch and the design of the Apple Watch. That's why I think ultimately what's going to happen here is there's going to be some agreement between these two companies. There's too much money at stake to leave that off the table, especially given how important the growth in the Apple Watch and these accessories are to Apple. So I think that's the most likely, but we will see. In any event, we're going to likely see a hit in revenue for Apple short term by taking these products off the shelves. And long term, if they do find a solution with Massimo, that's probably going to mean an increase in costs. Maybe they can pass some of that cost on to customers, or maybe they're going to have generally lower margins for these Apple Watches in the meantime. This may be a turning point in the future of the Apple Watch. So something to keep an eye on. Usually Apple ultimately wins these cases, but this one has gone this far. And it isn't since some of those older iPhone models where Samsung went through something similar that they've actually taken product off the shelf. So that's what I think is ultimately really notable. And this is a reminder of how critical just a few products are to Apple's growth. Like I said, core products not really growing anymore. So AirPods and the Apple Watch really driving a lot of the growth right now for this business. But what do you think about this announcement and Apple's reaction, these products coming off the shelf? How are they going to react? I think this is going to be really fascinating to watch over the next couple of weeks. But check back here at Asymmetric Investing for more on Apple and its reaction to this and where their growth and profitability comes from in the future. My name is Travis Hoium. Thanks for watching Asymmetric Investing, and I'll see you here next time.